My name is Claire Moore. I just turned 29. I'm a graphic designer living in a mid-sized city called Lakewood. Life had been quiet, stable, but tonight, something in the air felt different, like the start of something bigger. I couldn't stop smiling as I scanned the candlelit restaurant. Everything felt almost perfect. The soft floral arrangements, the mellow music, the hint of roses in the air. Tonight was our engagement party. After 4 years together, Daniel and I were finally taking the next step. In 4 months, we'd be saying our vows. Daniel stood beside me, tall and steady, his hand resting gently at my back. We met at work. He joined the creative team at my firm 4 years ago. It all started during a company retreat, and everything fell into place after that. He was kind, grounded, and smart. We'd built a life together on mutual trust, respect, and quiet ambition. Friends and family had gathered to celebrate this moment with us. I glanced around, taking in familiar smiles, familiar eyes. Former classmates, co-workers, Daniel's parents, even a few long-lost cousins. And of course, my family, well, most of them, were there too. My parents, Karen and Owen Moore, sat near the front, stiff smiles on their faces. Their smiles were tight, the kind that strained rather than shone. Brittany, my younger sister, was there too, eyes glued to her phone as if the night bored her. We'd never been close, and whatever thread connected us had long since frayed. Still, I smiled through the static. Tonight wasn't about family fractures. It was supposed to be about love, commitment, a fresh chapter, or so I thought. Then my mother, Karen, rose and tapped her wine glass. The clink echoed, the room fell quiet. "Everyone, may I have your attention?" She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. "First off," she said sweetly, "congratulations to my beautiful daughter Claire and her charming fiancé, Daniel. I hope your marriage is filled with love, joy, and all the happiness in the world," she said. There was a soft wave of applause and glasses clinked around the room. Daniel gave my hand a reassuring squeeze under the table. I smiled, feeling grounded. But then my mother spoke again. Her voice smore now, like a blade cloaked in velvet. "I also have something important to share," she said, placing her glass on the table. "After much discussion, Owen and I have decided to reallocate Claire's $55,000 wedding fund to Brittany." The room froze. Time held its breath. I blinked. Surely I misheard. A nervous laugh slipped out as I searched the room for someone to join in the joke. "Nice one, Mom," I said with a thin smile. "But that money's mine. I'm not handing it over." Karen's smile vanished. Her mouth drew into a tight, disapproving line. "This isn't a joke, Claire," she snapped. "Your sister is getting married too, and she needs it more than you," she added like it was obvious. Heat crawled up my neck. My stomach twisted. "What are you even saying? That's mine. You both gave it to me. It's in my name." "Sweetheart," she said, feigning calm, "you and Daniel are financially stable. Brittany isn't. She deserves something beautiful too." My hands shook under the table. I stood, spine straightening as I steadied my breath. "We budgeted every cent of that. We've been careful. We're responsible." "Part of it's for our future home," I added, voice steady. "You can't just erase that." Brittany shoved her chair back, standing so fast her drink nearly toppled. "Stop being so selfish, Claire," she hissed. "You should have offered to help. You know we're struggling more than you are." I faced her, jaw tight with disbelief. "This isn't about who needs what. It's about fairness, Brittany. I planned. You burned through your savings, and now you want mine too?" "She lives modestly," Mom barked. "Her fiancé's trying. You've always had more." "I've always worked for everything I have," I said, arms crossed. "I played by the rules. I saved. I planned ahead. I don't care how you try to justify it. That money is mine, and you're not getting it. Karen's face turned a deep, furious red. The tension in the room thickened like smoke. Daniel gently touched my arm, but I didn't move. I was done being silent. Then, like the world slowed, my mother stepped forward and slapped me. Hard. The sound cracked across the restaurant like lightning splitting wood. My head jerked sideways. My cheek burned, and my eyes blurred. Not from pain, but from betrayal. Silence dropped like a curtain. Not a single fork clinked. Even Brittany's mouth hung open. I turned back toward my mother, slowly. My voice came out even and cold. You don't get to hit me just because I finally stood up to you. Someone near us gasped. Then came the low voice of a waiter near the bar, on the phone. Yes, I need to report an assault. It happened just now. We're at Alden's Bistro. Minutes later, the rising wail of sirens pierced the night air. The room remained still. Some guests stared at me, others stared anywhere but. Plates suddenly became fascinating. Eyes dropped. I stood motionless, my skin burning, my mind racing. My cheek throbbed, but the deeper wound was invisible. Daniel stayed close, jaw clenched in disbelief. My father quietly took Karen's arm, murmuring something to her. Moments later, 2 officers in uniform stepped through the doors. One of them approached and asked, "Are you the one who was assaulted?" I nodded, quiet, unflinching. A waiter stepped forward and confirmed everything. Karen stammered, calling it a family dispute. But the officer calmly explained, "Public assault is a crime, no matter the relationship." Then they asked if I wanted to press charges. My pulse roared, but my voice was ice. "Yes," I said, "I do." They arrested Karen right then and there. As they led her away in cuffs, Brittany stared at me like I was the villain, like I was the bad guy, for finally saying enough. My father followed them out without a word. The room stayed suspended in time. No one clapped, no one moved. Daniel held my hand through it all, steady, unmoving. That night, after consulting my lawyer, I filed formal charges. Karen made bail the next morning, but the wheels of justice were already turning. A few weeks later, we met again, this time in court. This time, the courtroom wasn't about money. It was about the strike. Karen stood before the judge while witness statements and restaurant footage played on record. The evidence was clear, unforgiving. She was convicted of misdemeanor assault, fined $2,000, ordered to attend anger management, and placed on 6 months probation. The judge gave her mercy, a suspended 30-day jail sentence. No bars, no cuffs, just consequences. I watched her, eyes down, not once meeting mine. When asked if I had something to say, I stood. I looked directly at my mother and said, steady as stone, "I never imagined this from my own mother, but no one is above the law." After court, I thought the storm had passed. I was wrong. The slap didn't break the family. It exposed how broken we already were. Karen never called, never wrote. Brittany blocked me everywhere, socials, phone, email. And my father chose what he always chose, silence. But the real war hadn't started yet. 3 weeks later, I came home to a thick, heavy envelope in my mailbox, the kind that makes your stomach drop before you even open it. It was from a law firm, Hall and Sutter. Inside, a legal summons. My parents were suing me for control of the $55,000 account. They claimed it was meant for college only and that I misused it. At first, I laughed, the kind of laugh that hides fury. That account was mine, legally, contractually, morally. It was a custodial fund, opened when I was 16. At 19, I gained full access and control. They had told Brittany and me we could use it however we chose, that once we were adults, it was ours to manage. The only difference? I had been careful, focused. I used part for college, state school, nothing fancy. The rest was covered by scholarship. The account kept growing. I had a plan. I always did. Brittany, in contrast, had attended an elite private university, only to drop out less than 3 years in. She burned through the rest of her fund trying to launch a boutique that tanked in under 7 months. She wasted it on aesthetic branding, a flashy photo shoot, and a launch party with rented influencers. When the business crashed, all she had left was a luxury car she'd bought on impulse, believing she was destined for success. And now, with her account drained, she and my parents were after mine. I hired Stephen Elaine, a razor-sharp attorney with steel in her voice and calm in her eyes. After going through the documents, she looked up and said, "They don't have a case. It's your money. No conditions. No restrictions. Verbal promises don't hold water in court." I nodded, relieved, yes, but seething underneath. "So why put me through this?" I asked. Stevena gave a quiet shrug. "Because some people would rather destroy you than admit they failed, especially when they're covering for someone else." And in that moment, it all clicked. This wasn't about money. This was a lifetime of favoritism wrapped in legal paper. My mother wasn't just after my savings. She was trying to bury Brittany's failure and using my account as the dirt. The months that followed drained me, mentally, emotionally, completely. The lawsuit swallowed my time, my peace, my sleep. Work suffered, so did I. Paperwork piled high, hearings blurred into one another. Each time I stepped into court and saw them, my family, lined up against me, eyes averted, faces stiff with false conviction, I remembered. This wasn't legal. It was personal. It was betrayal in full view. Brittany sat in court with a smirk, like victory was guaranteed, as if my years of discipline meant nothing next to her entitlement. In one tense session, Brittany took the stand. She told the court the money had always been for college only. Stephen arose and asked evenly, "Did you use all of your funds strictly for college expenses?" Brittany paused. "Not all of it," she admitted. Stevena didn't flinch, just nodded. "You dropped out, spent the rest on a failed boutique and a luxury vehicle, correct?" Brittany's jaw locked. "That's irrelevant," Brittany snapped, but it was extremely relevant. Stevena didn't stop. "So if there were supposedly restrictions on how the money could be used, why were you able to use it on non-educational expenses without anyone intervening?" Brittany froze. She had nothing. I sat still. My heart thundered, but my spine stayed straight. It was all unraveling now. The favoritism, Brittany's recklessness, their attempt to erase her failures by staining me. Outside that courtroom, Daniel was my anchor. He never missed a hearing, held my hand through every attack, and reminded me over and over, this fight mattered, but it drained me. Between the mounting legal bills and emotional exhaustion, my wedding felt like it was unraveling thread by thread. We postponed vendors, adjusted dates. I couldn't sleep through the night. I cried in silence, sometimes at 3 a.m., sometimes between work meetings. But I never stopped fighting. Because it wasn't about money. Not really. It was about being seen, for once, and being heard. It was about telling the truth, even if it meant standing alone. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, it wasn't. I was home, reviewing vendor quotes, when my cousin Melissa called. "Claire, I'm so sorry about the cancellation," she said gently. My stomach dropped. "What?" I said. "The wedding is still happening." She hesitated. Your mom told me last week you and Daniel broke up, that he cheated. My breath caught. Within the hour, 3 more calls came in. Friends, extended family, all confused, all asking if it was true. Someone had sent fake cancellation emails, pretending to be me, telling guests the wedding was off. I checked my accounts. Nothing. Someone had made a fake email. Someone impersonated me. I was shaken. My mind snapped to Brittany. No proof, just a long line of sabotage. This wasn't legal anymore. This was personal. It was war. I called Aunt Mara, one of the last relatives who hadn't chosen a side. I was just about to call, she said, exhaling slowly. Your mom's been telling people you made it all up about Daniel, that you're unstable and the wedding was never even real. I sank against the wall, drained to the bone. Why would she go this far? I whispered. She's shielding Brittany, Aunt Marlowe said gently. She always has, even when Brittany didn't earn it. I love your sister, but your mother keeps enabling her. Now she's tearing you down to make Brittany shine. That betrayal stung more than any courtroom blow. My own mother was assassinating my character to salvage Brittany's broken image. That night, Daniel walked in and instantly saw it in my face. What happened? He asked, voice low. I handed him the screenshots, emails I didn't write, and told him what Melissa had heard. He clenched his jaw, not shocked, just angry. Brittany reached out to me too, he added, tone dark. She claimed to have proof you cheated. She sent photos. I stared, heart frozen. He pulled out his phone and showed me the worst Photoshop I'd ever seen. A woman with my face slapped onto someone else's body, posed next to some stranger in dim lighting. It was pathetic, and still, it hurt. Daniel sighed through gritted teeth. I didn't buy it, but my parents saw them too. Your family is trying to tear apart everything we're building. That was the breaking point. We took action. We hired licensed private security for the wedding. We submitted photos of Karen, Owen, and Brittany with strict instructions. They were banned from entry. It broke my heart to do it. But I wasn't giving them a chance to ruin anything more. On my wedding morning, I woke with joy tangled in unease. We had chosen a quiet outdoor venue, nestled just outside Lakewood. It wasn't extravagant, just elegant, intentional, and us. White chairs curved around the garden lawn, facing a wooden arch draped in fresh florals. I stood alone in the bridal suite, smoothing my dress. I adjusted my veil as I watched the guests trickle in. My stomach turned with something worse than nerves. Not from vows, from the possibility of disaster. 2 uniformed guards stood at the gate. They had one instruction: deny entry to my family. Daniel and I reviewed every detail. Twice. Still, I couldn't breathe easy. At 2:15 sharp, someone knocked on the bridal suite door. One of the guards entered quietly, voice low and serious. Miss Moore, he began carefully. We've detained a woman trying to sneak in through the back service gate. She matches the photo. It's your sister, Brittany. My heart thudded. Was she alone? I asked. Yes, he said, but she was carrying a large bag. We searched it and found a large can of red paint. I stopped breathing for a moment. The dress, the garden, the people. She came to destroy everything. Anger, heartbreak, disbelief collided in my chest. Do you want us to call the sheriff? The guard asked. We can have her taken in. I paused. After the slap, the lawsuit, the lies, the sabotage, I had every right to press charges, but this was my day. I had already given them too much. No, I said at last, steady but hollow. Just escort her off the property and make sure she doesn't return. Also, check the perimeter for my parents. He nodded and exited silently. I sank into a chair, clutching my stomach. Megan rushed in and knelt beside me. "What happened?" she asked softly. "Brittany tried to sneak in, with red paint. She was going to ruin the entire wedding." Megan's face froze, then flushed with rage. "Then that means you won," she said fiercely. "They couldn't steal your joy, so they tried to wreck it. But you held your ground. You stopped them cold. Now go marry the man who never wavered. You've earned every second of this day." I wiped my tears, inhaled, and rose. My Uncle Steve, my father's brother, offered his arm. I stepped into the garden and saw Daniel waiting beneath the arch, his eyes locked with mine. In that moment, everything else vanished. The betrayal, the courtrooms, the nights I cried alone. All of it faded. Today was about love, our love. The ceremony was simple, honest, and breathtaking. Our vows spoke of fire, resilience, and unwavering partnership. When the officiant said, "Husband and wife," the garden bloomed with applause. For the first time in months, I felt unburdened, free. The reception was everything we dreamed of. Laughter echoed, music flowed, and toasts were made with trembling voices, from the people who stayed when it was hardest to. Megan's toast brought me to tears, the quiet tears of someone who survived the storm and saw the sun rise. Daniel and I danced until our feet ached and laughed like we hadn't in years. Because truly, nothing else mattered. Guests kept remarking how magical everything felt, how love seemed to bloom in every corner. Some had heard rumors, but no one dared disturb the peace we created. One aunt leaned in with eyes glistening and said, "You stood your ground, and it showed." Her words echoed long after the music faded. As the celebration waned, Daniel and I escaped. Beneath a sky stitched with stars, hand in hand, through a flurry of rice and laughter. We ducked into the waiting car and drove off into forever, grinning like two kids who got away with the biggest heist. Joy. I glanced back once more, at the light, the laughter, the love. Brittany tried to sabotage it all, but she couldn't touch this. None of them could. The honeymoon was untouched joy. 3 weeks by the sea, far from Lakewood, far from chaos. No courtrooms, no threats, just ocean and his arms. I finally exhaled the war I had held inside. Back home, I felt something new. Readiness. We built our space. Quiet, real, ours. Planned forward, left the wreckage behind. Weeks later, I bumped into Rachel at the grocery store. After a brief hug, she asked, "So, did you hear about Brittany's wedding?" I raised a brow. "We're not exactly on speaking terms," I said flatly. "Your parents took out a loan," she said. "She's booked the Grand Garden downtown. Lavish, out-of-state chef, imported flowers, the whole show. If she invites you, would you go?" Rachel asked, cautious. "She brought red paint to destroy my wedding," I said coldly. "So no, I won't be attending." And ironically, the invitation never came. Later, family whispers reached me. Several relatives turned down Brittany's invitation, uncomfortable with how I had been treated. Some declined quietly. Others made it known. Either way, Brittany's sparkle had dulled. And with it, so did my parents' image. Daniel and I used every cent of that $55,000 with purpose. We had a dream wedding. Simple, sacred, and ours. Modest, but meaningful. Full of people who mattered. The rest went toward our first home. A small apartment just beyond the city. Nothing flashy, but fully ours. Together, we managed the mortgage comfortably. For once, we weren't renting. We were investing in a future. The space was small, but it was sacred. Not built on pity or privilege, but effort. Married life brought a peace I never knew I craved. Weekends became quiet rituals, decorating, cooking, laughing. We built shelves with our own hands, bought furniture in cash, and hung memories on every wall. "Who do you think our first overnight guest will be?" he asked, chuckling. I froze mid-turn, screwdriver hovering. My thoughts flickered toward the ghosts of what-ifs. Maybe, someday, they'd apologize. Brittany would grow up, my parents would change. But I wasn't betting my piece on it. "Whoever it is," I said gently, "it'll be someone who loves us." Holidays passed in silence. No calls, no apologies, no effort. At first, their silence cut deep. My birthday came and went, unacknowledged. The first birthday without my mother's voice. But then I remembered the paint, the lawsuit, the lies, the slap that started it, the photoshopped betrayal, and how jealousy tried to ruin something sacred. And suddenly, pain became perspective. Sometimes Daniel would ask, "Do you think there'll ever be peace between you and your family?" "Maybe one day," I always said. "But if it does, it'll take more than sorry. It'll take transformation." And honestly, I don't expect it anytime soon. Brittany's wedding came and went like a storm, loud, dramatic, and short-lived. I heard it had champagne towers, imported orchids, and bridesmaids dressed like couture models. They even flew in a violinist from New York. It was expensive, excessive, and carefully curated for photos. But a number of relatives skipped it. They quietly distanced themselves, uncomfortable with how I'd been treated. Worse, the six-figure loan my parents took out became public gossip. They emptied their accounts for a single day, all to erase a year of scandal and silence. But the past doesn't disappear just because you cover it in florals. As Daniel and I grew stronger in our marriage, I realized something simple but life-changing. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who respects your no, who doesn't flinch at your truth, who celebrate your joy, not compete with it. I lost a lot, that's true, but I gained something greater: freedom, a future, and love without conditions. I gained chosen family, people who saw me and never looked away. And most of all, I still had me. I didn't break. I didn't beg. I defended my future, not from hate, but from legacy. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. The $55,000 gave us a home, but it also gave us something better. It gave us a clean break. It bought us freedom. Freedom from generational chains. Freedom from guilt trips disguised as love. Freedom from a version of love that demanded silence. I chose myself, and I won. Not just legally, emotionally, spiritually, fully. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it struck a chord or reminded you of your own story, consider liking and sharing. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Until then, choose peace. Choose you.